The law no one questioned. I grew up in Agbola, a small town near the river mouth. Everyone knew the rule: triplets must not live. If a woman gave birth to 3 babies, the king's guards took them. No one ever saw the babies again. No one dared ask questions. My mother told me, "Mind your business. The king protects us." But even as a child, I knew something was wrong. The night of the hidden birth. One rainy night, my cousin Kiru went into labor. I was there, holding a lamp. When the first baby came, we cheered. When the second came, we prayed. When the third came, we froze. Kiru cried, "Please, don't call the guards." The nurse looked at me. I looked at the door. And that was the night we decided to hide 3 babies from a king who did not forgive. The river mark. We hid the babies in my late uncle's hut near the river. But strange things happened. When the babies cried, the river rose. When they slept, fish gathered near the bank, staring like they understood. One night, I saw something on their skin. A tiny blue mark on each baby's back. It looked like a small wave. The old nurse whispered, "These are Marine Kingdom children. Their mother must never know." We swore to protect them. The king's secret. As the boys grew, the town began to change. Crops dried. Goats died. People said the gods were angry. Then we heard the truth. A palace worker escaped the king's service and ran straight to our hut. He said the king had a shrine below the palace. He sacrificed the blood of triplets to feed the gods of the land. The gods whispered to him. They made him strong. They made him cruel. And now, the man said, shaking, "The king knows a set escaped." The boys become something else. By the time the boys turned 13, they were no longer normal. When they spoke together, the wind changed direction. When they touched water, it glowed. They asked me, "Why can't we go to town? Why must we hide?" I didn't know how to tell them the king wanted their blood in his shrine. One evening, they stood by the river. The water rose around them but didn't touch their feet. Then a deep voice came from under the waves. "Children of the water, the land cries for you." I ran. I didn't stop until morning. The king comes for them. The king's guards found the hut 3 days later. They dragged us out. The boys were tied up. People gathered, afraid to blink. The king smiled at them. A cold, slow smile. "You were never meant to live," he said. "Your blood will bring peace again." But the boys stood calm. The oldest said, "Your peace is built on our bones." The middle one said, "Tonight, it ends." The youngest only stared at the king with eyes that were suddenly not human. The night the palace sank. The king ordered their execution at the riverside shrine. But when the blade touched the oldest boy's neck, the river roared like thunder. Water rose into a huge shape. Arms. Legs. A face. Something old and angry. The boys broke their ropes like grass. The youngest pointed at the king. The river creature rushed forward. The land shook. The shrine cracked. The palace above us collapsed like sand. I crawled away, watching the king get dragged under, screaming as the water swallowed him. The land after the king. When morning came, the sun felt new. The crops stood tall again. The goats returned from the forest. People whispered that the curse was gone. But the boys didn't stay. They walked into the river, holding hands. The water closed over them as if taking its children home. I called after them, but they didn't look back. To this day, people think the town was saved by the gods. But I know the truth. Triplets saved us. Triplets the king tried to kill. Triplets who were never meant to be born, but came anyway. And sometimes at night, when the river is calm, I hear 3 voices calling my name. I never answer. because I don't know if they want to thank me or take me with them. The river that would not sleep. After the boys left, the river changed. At night, it glowed faint blue like the marks on their backs. People said it was a blessing. But to me, it felt like someone watching. Sometimes the water bubbled even when there was no wind. Sometimes I heard footsteps near the bank even when I was alone. Once, I heard small splashes as if someone walked in shallow water. But when I held up my lamp, nothing was there. The elder said, "Do not go near the river after sunset." But they never told us why. Maybe they didn't know. Or maybe they did, and were too afraid to talk. The first disappearance. Then people started going missing. The first was a fisherman named Udo. His canoe came back by itself. There were deep scratches on the wood, like claws. Everyone whispered, "The spirits have returned." The second missing person was a child. She was playing near the water. Her mother blinked, and she was gone. Only her sandals were found at the edge. That night, I saw 3 shapes standing in the river. They were the size of teenagers, but their shadows were wrong. Too long. Too thin. They slid across the water like smoke. One of the shapes lifted a hand toward me. I ran home without breathing. The return of the king's shrine. The elders decided to search the ruined palace. They believed the disappearances were linked to the old shrine. They forced me to join them because I knew the boys best. The shrine below the palace looked worse than before. Water covered everything. The carvings on the walls glowed faintly, like wet eyes opening and closing. In the corner, I saw something floating. It was the king's mask. But it wasn't empty. Something moved behind it, breathing softly. One elder said, "The king's spirit cannot rest." The boys did not finish him. Everyone stepped back except me. And then I heard a voice. A boy's voice. "Come." The truth they never told us. That night, I went to the river alone. I knew the boys were calling me. The moon was high. The water was too calm. When I stepped close, the river rose like a hand lifting itself. The 3 boys surfaced slowly. They looked older. Their eyes were glowing like deep ocean water. The oldest said, "We did not kill the king." The middle one added, "We only broke his body." The youngest finished, "His spirit hides in the shrine. It wants us. And it wants you." I felt cold. Then I heard the king's voice behind me. It was soft. It was close. It whispered my name. The boys reached for me. The king reached for me. And I realized the war was not over. It was only beginning. The night of 2 hands. I stood between 2 powers. The boys in the water. And the king's spirit behind me. My legs shook. I didn't know which way to run. The king whispered again, "Turn around." But the boys shouted, "Don't look." A cold hand brushed the back of my neck. I almost fainted. Then the river rose suddenly and pulled me forward. I fell into the water, gasping. The boys dragged me under, but somehow I could breathe. The river carried us far from the bank. When I looked up, I saw a black shape standing on the shore. Tall. Thin. Watching. The kingdom under the water. The boys led me deep underwater. I expected darkness, but instead, everything glowed blue. There were houses carved from coral. Stone paths shaped by waves. Fish swam around us as if greeting old friends. "This is our home," the oldest said. Not the hut. Not the town. They showed me a throne made from a giant clamshell. I hoped no one sat there. I was wrong. A woman with long black hair and skin like river stone sat on the throne. She opened her eyes. They looked exactly like the boys. "You brought trouble," she said. "The mother of the deep." The woman stepped down from the throne. The water around her swirled as if obeying her thoughts. I am their mother, she said. Not the woman who gave birth. She was only the door. I didn't know what to say. She looked at me like she could see every secret I had. The king broke the balance, she said. He stole lives that belonged to the river. Now the river wants them back. I asked, why me? Why does he call my name? She stared at me for a long, long time. Then she said something that froze my stomach. Because you were there the night he lost his power. The king's new body. When we came back to the surface, the town was too quiet. No smoke from cooking fires. No voices. Not even a goat bleating. We moved through the street slowly. The boys walked ahead, their feet not touching the ground. Then we found the first sign. A house door, torn off its hinges. Scratches everywhere. Deep ones. The second sign was worse. A man standing in the middle of the road, staring at nothing. His eyes were empty. His shadow was wrong, stretching far behind him like something was pulling it. The youngest boy whispered, "He is wearing the king." When shadows walked. By nightfall, more people turned strange. They stood in the streets, not moving. Not blinking. Their shadows twisted like snakes. It was like the king spread himself through them. Piece by piece. Voice by voice. We hid inside an empty hut. The boys made a circle of river water around us. They said it would keep the king out for a while. Outside, I heard footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Then a voice whispered through the cracks of the hut. You cannot hide from your own fear. The boys held my hands tightly. The water circle shook. The last truth. We ran back to the river before dawn. The mother of the deep was waiting. She said, "The king wants a new body. A full one." I asked, "Whose?" She stared straight at me. "Yours." My knees almost gave out. The boys moved closer as if ready to fight the river itself. The mother said, "The king's spirit attached to you the night you helped hide the triplets. He has followed you since. He wants to wear you like a mask." My throat felt dry. I asked, "What do we do?" She said, "You must face him. Alone." The meeting at the shore. I walked to the riverbank by myself. The sky was grey. The air was heavy. The king was waiting. Not in a body, not in a shadow. But as a shape made of smoke and water. He said, "Give me your face. Give me your breath." His voice came from every direction. I wanted to run. But the mother's voice echoed in my head. "Face him." I stepped forward. He reached out. His finger touched my forehead. My vision went black. My heart stopped for a moment. Then I heard screaming. Not mine. His. The breaking. When the world came back into focus, the boys were standing around me. The king was on the ground, twisting like smoke caught in a storm. The mother of the deep rose from the river and lifted her arm. The water obeyed. It wrapped around the king's spirit like a rope. He screamed as the water tightened. The boys added their voices. The river shook. The earth shook. Then, silence. The king's shape broke apart like dust. The wind carried the pieces away. The mother said, "It is done." But the way she looked at me, I knew it wasn't truly over. Not for me. The river's price. After the king's spirit broke, I thought everything would feel normal again. But nothing felt normal. Not the air. Not the land. Not even my own body. When I tried to speak, my voice shook like I was underwater. When I looked at my hands, sometimes I saw faint blue light between my fingers. The mother of the deep said, "Every victory has a price." I didn't ask what mine was. I was afraid to know. The town speaks again. By morning, the town woke up. People blinked, confused, as if waking from a long sleep. They didn't remember being taken by the king's spirit. They didn't remember standing in the streets like statues. But they remembered the fear. And they remembered the triplets returning with strange power. Some people worshipped them. Some feared them. Some blamed me. One woman pointed at me and said, "You brought the curse." I didn't have the strength to argue. Maybe she was right. The boy's choice. The boys stood at the riverbank, watching the town rebuild itself. They didn't smile. They didn't talk much. Finally, the oldest boy said, "We cannot stay here." The middle one added, "We belong to two worlds." The youngest said nothing. He only looked at me with sad eyes. I felt something break inside me. I had raised them since they were born. But I knew they were never meant to stay. The mother of the deep called them home. They did not resist. My last night in town. I tried to sleep, but the river kept calling my name. Soft at first. Then louder. I pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. When I looked outside, I saw 3 shapes standing on the water. They were not the boys. They were echoes. Memories. Warnings. I knew then that the king wasn't the only thing living in the deep. He was only the first thing we angered. The mark on my skin. In the morning, I found a blue mark on my back. A wave-shaped mark. The same as the boys. I screamed. I tried to scrub it off. It didn't fade. When I touched it, I felt a pull. Like the river wanted me. I went to the mother of the deep. She looked at the mark and said, "It has begun." I asked, "What has begun?" She didn't answer. The elders fear. The elders gathered in a circle. They whispered about me. They stared at the mark on my back. One elder said, "We must not allow another chosen one to remain on land." Another said, "If the river takes them, let it." I felt like a stranger in my own home. The same people I saved now feared me. Some even wished I would disappear into the water like the triplets. Maybe they were right. The second calling. That night, I felt the pull again. Stronger. Harder. Painful. The river glowed bright blue, lighting the whole town. The wind carried voices. Not angry, not kind. Just hungry. I walked toward the water without meaning to. Each step felt guided by something bigger than me. The mother of the deep appeared beside me. She said, "You can no longer run from what you are becoming." The choice I did not want. The boys surfaced beside their mother. Their faces were calm but sad. "You must join us," the oldest said. "The king wanted your body. The river wants your spirit." I shook my head. "I'm not like you." The middle one said, "You are now." The youngest reached for my hand. When our fingers touched, the pain stopped. I realized the river wasn't calling me to kill me. It was calling me to claim me. But I wasn't ready. The last walk through Agbola. Before dawn, I walked through the town one last time. Children played near broken fences. Women cooked by smoky fires. Men repaired boats destroyed during the king's rise. No one looked at me. Some pretended not to see me. Maybe ignoring me was easier than saying goodbye. I understood. The river had changed me. I was no longer part of the land. No longer one of them. I walked to the river without turning back. The boys were waiting. The mother of the deep stood behind them like a tall shadow. The river opened, glowing with soft blue light. Calm. Warm. Inviting. I stepped forward. My feet touched the water. And the water rose to meet me like a familiar hand. The boys whispered, "Welcome home." As the river closed over my head, I felt no fear. Only peace. Only truth. Only the weight of a new life pulling me deeper. Agbola would remember the triplets. Agbola would remember the king. Agbola would remember the night the river fought back. But my story, my real story, would live under the water, far from human mouths. And that is how I left the world of land, and became a child of the deep.